Good evening and welcome. Tonight I'll be reading a short story, an original short ghost story that I wrote about a couple of years ago called The Return of the Amicus Bibens. Now, just so you know, Amicus Bibens is Latin. It literally means drinking friend, but it loosely translates to drinking buddy. I wrote it a couple years ago, and I haven't really read it to anybody or let it too many people see it. I think I've let, like, a couple people read it for me, read it and tell me what their feedback is. But before we get into the story, do me a favor, go down below, look for the thumbs up image with a like on it, click on that. Click on the subscribe button if you have not done that already. I know one or two of you have already subscribed to my channel, but if you have not subscribed to my channel yet, please do that for me. And also leave a comment. I would really like to hear your thoughts on this and hear what you think. If you enjoyed these stories, and just so you know, this is probably going to be the last uh, Halloween story that I'm going to do for a while, because it's typically not the type of story that I write. I will occasionally write something for Halloween. So this is going to I the stories after this are going to be different. But I was planning to do this for this past Halloween, but certain things happened and got in the way, and I wasn't able to do it. So I'm going to do it tonight. So it's a little bit late for Halloween, but still, it's a pretty good ghost story, I think. So I hope you enjoy it. The Return of the Amicus Bibens by James J. Jenkins. A sudden chill ran down Adam's spine as he drove up Seawall Boulevard and saw the run-down, weather-beaten fishing boat, like something that had returned from the dead. The Amicus Bibens, once a beautiful and proud vessel, had run aground and now sat leaning to port as if it had given up its last breath to reach shore. It had been 2 years since Adam had seen the watercraft, thinking it long sunk to the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico. But there it was, a ghost from his past. Adam parked his old gray pickup behind the Galveston Sheriff's patrol car, climbed out, descended the concrete stairs, and strolled down the beach where the sheriff and his deputy were talking near the boat. He pulled up the zipper on his windbreaker against the chilly morning wind. The sheriff turned toward him, hands on hips, belly jutting over his belt. The deputy, a tall, gawky-looking man, stood with his arms crossed in an attempt to protect himself from the brisk weather. "Mr. Fawcett," the sheriff called as Adam approached. "That's me." Adam's tall, athletic frame and sunburned, rugged face pegged him as an outdoorsman. "Thank you for coming out this morning." The sheriff stuck the tip of his pinky into his right ear and wiggled it. "You look like you could use some coffee." "I could, actually. You've got some?" "As a matter of fact, we've got a thermos of coffee in our patrol car." "That'll work. Cream? Sugar?" Adam shook his head. "Black." The sheriff turned to the deputy. "Could you run and fetch Mr. Fawcett here a cup of coffee, please? Black." The deputy grumbled something under his breath, stuffed his hands into his coat pockets, and trudged up the beach to the patrol car. "So tell me, Mr. Fawcett, is that the boat?" The sheriff thrust his thumb toward the beached vessel. "That's her." "Are you sure?" "Sheriff, I'd know that boat anywhere. That's the Amicus Bibens, all right." "Where'd you last see her?" "Out in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico about 2 years ago." "I could probably give you the longitude and latitude if you like." "Wouldn't do me any good. I'm no sailor." "How'd she get here?" No idea. One of the locals came across her early this morning on his way to do some fishing. At this point, the deputy had returned with two styrofoam cups filled with coffee. He handed one to Adam. The sheriff took the other. The deputy turned to the sheriff with an annoyed expression. That coffee wasn't meant for him. The sheriff sipped it anyway. The deputy grumbled under his breath some more and trudged back up the beach to get another cup for himself. Have you been on board yet? Adam sipped his own coffee. Yep. Deputy Danvers and I have already looked over the interior. Nothing out of the ordinary that we could find. We've got a forensics team on the way. They'll be able to do a more thorough investigation. Well, good luck. If you just needed me to identify the boat, I'll be on my way. Just a minute. Maybe you can tell me what happened that night on board. I told the Coast Guard what happened when I was rescued 2 years ago. And now you can tell me. Adam sighed. He considered leaving, but realized it would be better to cooperate now rather than have the sheriff coming after him for some answers later. He cleared his throat and let his gaze sweep the boat from fore to aft. The sheriff set his coffee in the sand at his feet and pulled a small pocketbook and a ballpoint pen from his pocket. Marty and I, Adam began. That'd be Martin Reed, the owner of the boat? That's right. Adam took another sip of his coffee before continuing. Marty and I often went out fishing together, almost every weekend, in fact. How long have you two known each other? Since we were kids. We grew up together, even though we came from very different backgrounds. Marty came from money. My family was working class. Go on. Sheriff began writing in his notebook. Well, we went out to do some night fishing. Were you drinking? Yeah, that's why Marty named the boat the Amicus Bibens. It's Latin for drinking buddy. So what happened? Well, we were sitting around fishing and drinking. We didn't catch much fish, and most of what we caught we threw back. Then out of nowhere, Marty asked me if I'd been sleeping with his wife. Were you? Nope. Adam looked at the sheriff as if the question itself were offensive. There are enough available women on this island. I don't need to chase after my best friend's wife. Of course not. Well, Marty refused to believe me. He kept insisting that I was having an affair with Shelley. That would be Shelley Reed, Martin's wife? Yeah. Well, things ended up getting physical with me and Marty. He threw a punch at me. I tried to dodge, but he clipped my ear. So I tackled him and we fell into the fishing equipment. Somehow he got a fishing hook stuck in his hand. I got up and told him to stay down, but he wouldn't listen. I grabbed a nearby life preserver to fend him off. Then he plowed into me and we both fell overboard. I clung to the life preserver, but I don't know what happened to Marty. I never saw him again. And I suppose you couldn't get back onto the boat? Nope. The current carried the Amicus Bevans away. No matter how fast I swam, I couldn't catch up. And eventually you were rescued? Yep, the next morning. From what I understand, there wasn't any sign of Martin Reed. I assumed he drowned, except there was no body. Maybe he was eaten by a shark. I don't know. Damn pen's out of ink. The sheriff had been trying to write some notes. He shook the pen, but it still would not write. You don't happen to have a pen on you, would you? No, sorry, Adam said. I've got another one in the vehicle. Give me a minute and I'll get it. No problem. As the sheriff walked up the beach toward his vehicle, Adam looked at the boat. He saw someone inside the wheelhouse, but could not make out who it was. They waved to him. He raised his hand in response, confused about who would be on the boat. He thought maybe the deputy had climbed aboard and he hadn't noticed. When he turned to call the sheriff, he saw the deputy leaning against the police vehicle, sipping his coffee. Adam turned back to the boat, but whoever had been on board was gone. Adam returned home. Seeing the Amicus Bibens run aground left him feeling distraught. He had hoped that whole matter was over and done with 2 years ago. Marty was gone. There was nothing he could do about that. The boat should have been gone too. How had it even returned? Could have ended up anywhere. Why here? His mouth felt dry. He needed some water, something to help him get over this feeling of dread. He opened his refrigerator to find little more than a few beers and some ketchup. He would have to go to the store to stock up, but at least he had a few cold bottles of water. He grabbed one, cracked it open, and took a long swig from it before closing the refrigerator door. He turned and noticed something on the counter beside the sink, something that didn't belong, an old rusty fishing hook. He hadn't noticed that before. He wondered where it came from. He picked it up, noting that due to its rusty condition, it was no longer useful. He crossed over to the trash can and dropped the hook in it. He spent the day out in his garage working on an outboard motor he intended to use for the small fishing boat he had bought the previous month. He figured he could get some mechanical work done, then head out to the store for some groceries. It was still mid-morning, and he had plenty of time to get some things done. After a frustrating hour of working on the motor, he decided to give up for the day and head inside the house. He went in through the back door and to the kitchen sink where he washed his hands with a dish soap he kept nearby. As he scrubbed the grease from his hands, he noticed something from the corner of his eye. The rusty old fishing hook lay once again on the counter by the sink. He could have sworn he'd tossed it into the trash. He wondered how it got back on the counter. Maybe he was mistaken about throwing it into the trash. He snatched it up and threw it into the trash again. He had things to do and no time to worry about some old hook. Later, after going to the grocery store, Adam got home. He set the bags onto the kitchen table and began to unload them. At first, he did not see it. In fact, it wasn't until he pulled the broccoli from the bag that it caught his attention. The old rusted hook was again sitting on the kitchen counter next to the sink. He set the broccoli on the table, walked over to the counter, and picked it up. A door slammed shut. The sound came from the back hallway. Most likely it was the bathroom door. Adam dropped the hook back onto the counter and cautiously walked to the hallway. Edging along the wall, he made his way to the closed bathroom door. He could see the light under the door and the slightest movement of a shadow in the light, as if someone were moving around inside. He backed out of the hallway and crept over to an umbrella stand where he kept a wooden baseball bat in case of an intruder. Trying to make as little noise as possible, he drew the bat from the umbrella stand and slipped back down the hallway, keeping against the wall. Adrenaline pumping, heart thumping, he reached for the doorknob. He could feel the sweat dripping down his forehead as he raised the bat, ready to defend himself. He imagined a desperate fugitive hiding from the law, pointing a gun at the door, ready to fire once he opened it. His only chance was to take them by surprise. As his hand gripped the doorknob, the light beneath the door went out. He took a deep breath, held it, turned the knob, and flung the door open. Screaming like a berserker, charging into battle, he looked one way, then the other, searching for the intruder. No one. He flipped on the light switch, then swept the shower curtain aside with a baseball bat, certain someone was hiding behind it. The bathroom was empty. He gasped for breath. His heart still raced as he dropped to the edge of the bathtub. He let the bat plunk to the floor and wiped his brow with his shirt sleeve. What had just happened? He could have sworn he saw the light on in the bathroom. Someone had been in there, but where were they now? There was no other way out except through the door. Could he have imagined it? And what about the fishing hook on the kitchen counter? He didn't imagine that. Someone was playing games with him, but who? How? He picked up the baseball bat from the floor, stood up, flipped off the light switch, and started back down the hallway. Just as he came parallel with the darkened bedroom to his right, he heard someone whisper, Adam. He spun, lifting the bat into an on guard position. He waited, ready to defend himself. Silence followed. He edged toward the bedroom door, sweeping the bat from side to side, never knowing where an attack might come from. When he had maneuvered himself to just inside the door frame, he reached over and flipped on the light. No one was there. Not satisfied, he searched the room, under the bed, inside the closet, behind the dresser. He found no sign of anyone. Up until this point, Adam had refused to even consider that he was dealing with a ghost. He had never believed in ghosts. Ghosts had always been the product of someone's imagination. Now, however, there seemed to be only two possible explanations. Either he was insane or there was a ghost in his house. Adam. He heard the whisper again, coming from the living room. He rushed down the hall and came to a stop in the middle of the room. Who's there? He shouted. He held the bat up, ready to swing the moment he saw someone. Who's there? He shouted again, more forcefully. A buzz and crackle seemed to come from everywhere as all the lights in the house flickered off and on. Even the rooms where the lights had been turned off were illuminated 1 second, then dark the next. The lights continued to turn off and on for what seemed like an eternity, but lasted no more than a minute. The entire house went dark. Adam gasped and waited. When the lights returned to their original state, he swung the bat at nothing, hitting a nearby table lamp and knocking it to the floor. Adam. This time the whisper came from the kitchen. His mind raced, trying to understand what was happening. If he was dealing with a ghost, how could he fight it? What could he do? Even though the baseball bat felt useless against a phantom, he refused to relinquish it as it gave him some feeling of security. Everything in the kitchen appeared to be quiet for the moment. He was determined to track this ghost down and deal with it in some way. How do you even get rid of a ghost? Call a priest? Adam wasn't religious, so he didn't know any priests on the island. He could find a local church if necessary and hopefully get some help from them. He would, however, prefer to deal with the matter himself. He just wasn't sure how. Come out and face me, he called. I'm not afraid of you. He circled the kitchen table until his back was to the sink. One of the chairs at the table came sliding across the floor at him as if someone had kicked it across the room. He fell back against the counter, catching himself on the countertop. A sharp pain pierced the palm of his hand. He looked at his hand to find the rusted old fishing hook had lodged itself into the flesh between his thumb and index finger. Turning to the sink, he opened the faucet and put his hand under the running water. With a deep guttural bellow, he worked the hook out, then washed the blood off. He grabbed some paper towels from the roll and wrapped them around his hand, pressing them against the wound to stop the bleeding. What do you want? He called. No answer. The kitchen was quiet as he stood there, breathing heavily. Blood began to soak the paper towels. He pressed against his hand. Seconds passed, but nothing happened. Adam looked at his wound and thought about getting some medical help. He might even need a tetanus shot. Then another whisper. Murderer. Adam jumped, bumping into the table and several chairs as he moved about the kitchen, searching for the source of the voice. No one was there. He felt the need to leave. He had to get out of the house. He needed to be far away from this place and figure things out. Grabbing his keys from the green ceramic bowl in the living room, he went out to the front door and got into his pickup truck and drove off. After spending several hours at the emergency room getting his hand attended to, Adam drove across the causeway to Texas City. Once there, he drove up to the main entrance of a gated community. He punched in the code to open the gate. Luckily, the code had not changed since he had last visited. Once the gate opened, he drove through and made his way to a two-story colonial house. Shelley answered the door after he had been knocking for 5 minutes. Her long blonde hair was tied back with a black ribbon. She must have been relaxing at home since she had held a glass of red wine. "What do you want?" she asked as she crossed her arms and leaned against the door jamb. "You heard the Amicus Bibens ran aground in Galveston?" Adam asked, and looked off into the bushes. Seeing her again brought back too many memories. "Yeah, the cops called me earlier today. What about it?" "Strange that after 2 years it shows up right back where it started from, don't you think?" "Is that why you came here?" She took a sip of her wine. "No." He took a breath. He knew what he was going to say would sound ridiculous. "Marty came back with it." "What do you mean?" "Marty's dead, and the cops said no bodies were found on board." "Marty is dead, and there weren't any bodies on board." He shifted from one foot to another, kicking at the ground, unable to look her in the eye. "But he still came back." "You're kidding me." Her mouth curled into a half smile. "I'm not joking, Shelley. Marty's ghost was on board that boat. Then it showed up at my house. You're nuts. There's no such thing as ghosts. That's what I thought, until Marty's ghost showed up. Go home. You're drunk." She started to close the door, but he caught it and held it open. "I heard his voice, Shelley. He spoke to me. He made things happen that I can't explain. You need to leave, Adam. I just came to warn you." "About what? What are you going to do?" "I killed Marty for you, Shelley," he hissed as if afraid someone might overhear. "You made all kinds of promises. We were going to be together. We were going to live the good life with Marty's money, remember?" "That was just talk." "Yeah, just talk. Except I took it seriously then, and I killed Marty so you and I could be together. But that didn't happen, did it? Leave now, or I'm calling the police." "Call the police. Go ahead. I'll confess everything, and we'll both go to prison." "I'll deny everything." "Really? You willing to take that kind of chance?" She looked at him with hatred in her eyes. "It's not the cops you have to worry about, Shelley," he said, backing away from the door. "Marty will be coming for you." "You don't scare me. There's no ghost." "You'll see. Sooner or later, you'll see." He turned and walked back towards his pickup. Halfway to his truck, he turned to her. "Marty will show up, Shelley. You can bet on it." She huffed at him and closed and locked the door. It began raining as Adam drove across I-45 back to Galveston. His mind was reeling from everything that had happened that day. He thought about Shelley, that bitch. She used to get what she used him to get what she wanted and left him holding the bag. Now all he wanted was to get some sleep and put all of it behind him. The problem was he couldn't return home with a ghost around. He decided to spend the night in a hotel. Maybe in the morning he could find a priest or someone to exorcise the ghost from his house. As he drove over the causeway which stretched across the Gulf Channel, he felt a chill on the back of his neck and heard the whisper again. "Adam." He looked up at his rearview mirror to see a pair of eyes staring back at him over his right shoulder. At the same instant, the steering wheel violently jerked to the right, causing his pickup to swerve and head straight for the guardrails. A loud horn blared as a semi pulling a trailer barreled down on him in the right far lane. The semi hit his truck, causing it to roll over the guardrails and plummet into the water of the channel below. The next night, Shelley paced in her living room. Every minute or so, she would glance out her window toward the driveway. Behind her, the evening news was just getting started on the large flat screen television. Her cell phone rang. She picked it up off the coffee table next to the bowl of flowers. She looked at the caller ID, then answered it. "Where are you? I've been waiting half an hour." "Sorry, I'm not going to be able to make it tonight," the man on the other end said. "And why not?" "Joanne is getting suspicious." "That bitch! I've had it with her." "Just be a little patient. I'll figure something out. My patience is running thin." "I could file for divorce." "No, we never get her money then." "Is that so important?" "We talked about this." "I just don't know. Look, I'll take care of everything. Leave it to me." "All right, I gotta go." The call ended. Shelley tapped her phone screen and brought up her contacts. She scrolled down until she found the one she wanted and called the number. After a couple of rings, she got an answer. "Hello? Hey, it's me. Are you all set for tonight?" "Yep, everything's ready." "Good. Just so you know, the husband will be there. Don't hurt him too much, though. Just get him out of the way. It's the woman you're after." "And when do I get the rest of my money?" "Once the job is done." Shelley turned and suddenly saw a photo of Adam on the television screen. "Hang on," she said into the phone. She grabbed the remote control for the television and turned the volume up. "Reports say the man in the pickup was 39-year-old Adam Fawcett, a local mechanic. Several eyewitnesses say his vehicle suddenly swerved and drove in front of a semi-truck. The semi hit Mr. Fawcett's Ford Ranger and caused it to go over the guardrails and into the Gulf Channel. Police still are not certain what caused Mr. Fawcett's vehicle to swerve across the lanes on the causeway. Police suspect alcohol may have been involved, but have not yet confirmed it. Mr. Fawcett died almost instantly. Excuse me, sorry, I have to. Authorities suspect alcohol may have been involved, but have not yet confirmed it. Mr. Fawcett died almost instantly. "My God," Shelley said. "What?" the man on the phone asked. "Never mind." Shelley spoke into the phone. Just do the job tonight and I'll get you the rest of your money. As long as you don't forget. Don't you worry about me." Shelley hit the red dot on her phone screen and ended the call. She looked back at the television, which had already moved on to the next news story. She leaned over to set her phone back down on the coffee table and noticed something perched on the table corner. It was an old rusty fishing hook. She had no idea where it came from. She had never seen it before. She didn't recall it being there earlier. As she began to reach for the hook, she heard a voice whisper from the hallway, "Shelley." The end. Well, there you have it. Sorry for the interruption there. My throat was getting a little bit raw. But I hope you enjoyed that. Hope that's a pretty good ghost story. And again, if you enjoyed it, do me a favor, click on the like button below and leave a comment. Tell me what you think. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. All right. Well, have a good night, everybody.